Okay, so yesterday there were two mobile phones announced, but your top of let's say the top mobile phone brand is Asha, and Asha was nowhere to be seen or heard yet, more or less yesterday. A short mention, but otherwise, where was Asha yesterday?
No, I guess in a way that over the past half a year or year we have talked a lot about Asha and we have had a lot of announcements. So I mean, if you look at already last week or so, we launched the Asha 310. So the first basically with dual SIM and Wi-Fi, and obviously we are very pleased with the Asha momentum. So we have launched 15 devices in basically more than 130 markets, and as you know, basically we have had tremendous momentum in the low-end smartphone space. So we are the number one in 25 markets with Asha Touch. So I think we have talked a lot about Asha, but yesterday, as you said, basically the big news I think was basically on feature and first. And obviously, particularly I think what I see a lot of excitement around, both from customer and press, is the Nokia 105, really revolutionizing, if you will, in a way, the first step to the Nokia brand.
So let's say 105 is S30, and is it here to stay for long, or is it, let's say, there are fewer and fewer models, I think, of S30, so how long S30 has got before S40 gets into 10, I don't know, 7 or 109?
No, I mean,
how many years have you keep S30?
So these are exactly right. These are Series 30, and you can see it in the context basically of a market. So if you look at in a way the mobile world market, there are still many people who have not even made their first mobile voice call. So still, particularly in markets such as Africa and India, for many years, I think there's a big market for voice-only phones. But at the same time, what you see basically increased functionality. This can also provide on-ramp for the first time to music, first time to gaming, first time to multimedia, and also in the lineup, as you see, that is core in the mobile phone strategy is basically on-ramp to internet. So the short answer, we see a kind of a big market for many years, particularly when we basically drive innovation. And what I think is particularly attractive, what we get positive feedback for, is basically the very beautiful design language also at this price point. That basically you see basically the vibrant color range and beautiful design that really stands out at that price range.
Does it do internet? Yeah, and does it have your Express browser? This one?
No. So basically, you can have some basically information services. For example, with Nokia Life in the markets we are, and Nokia Life, basically, 95 million users around the world have tried out Nokia Life. So you get basically basic infotainment and entertainment and services in those markets. But otherwise, this is basically voice and SMS. And the other, I think, is kind of the big step is basically that this is both color on the outside and inside. That this is basically the ended the black and white area in the Nokia device range with basically big color display also in this category.
So getting back to Asha, non-Asha.
Yeah.
I mean, it's looking from the outside, it's a little bit confusing. For example, 301 is not Asha, while a phone with, let's say, comparatively worse some specs like 205 or some others with QWERTY keyboards are Asha phones. So, I mean, how do you differentiate? Is it that traditional candy bars are not Asha and everything else is Asha, or?
First of all, I think the question is excellent because the market is blurring. If I look at kind of users, where does the feature phone start and the smartphone end and the other way around? It is really a blurring market. But what we kind of see when we talk to users, what users define as smartphones, is very much when you have basically a good browser, you have typically navigations as a touch or QWERTY, and you have application downloads. So basically what we see with the smartphone is that when you have the user and developer behavior driven by the smartphone paradigm of browsing and applications, and what we see basically for us, it's basically when you have particularly the touch lineup and then basically the QWERTY lineup we have in those application capabilities and basic software capabilities that are in a way smartphone-like with the browser and store. That's where we have been basically calling it the Asha lineup.
And so again, let's say from your reports, a bit of I'm a bit confused. Let's see. Do you consider all Ashas now, let's say, smartphones or just full touch line? I mean,
so this is a never-ending race,
yeah,
right? When we look at technology, what's yesterday and what's forward. But in a way, you see basically a strong association. So we have QWERTY devices, and then you have the basically touch devices as well as smartphone. But what you see, the market trend in general is kind of increasing towards the touch. So we see kind of touch becoming more and more basically prevalent in the kind of smartphones touch base. So you see a strong association in the user's head towards touch and smartphones. And as you see, basically our lineup, we have basically both QWERTY Ashas and basically touch. Yes, and the market, particularly for touch, is kind of in a very high growth phase. And you see basically the very quick, basically market penetration of Asha. So in basically second half, when we ramped up from 0 to 16 million Asha smartphone ships, basically that also reflects basically huge demand for the Asha lineup.
So, but 301, even if it's not Asha, it has the Express browser.
Exactly
and,
right.
Okay, and does it? Let's say there is for app development. There's this Express web app builder.
Yeah.
So, can developers write apps for 301 too?
Yes.
So why is it not a smartphone? I mean, it's not why is it not Asha now?
Yeah. So basically, we have tried in a way for developers to have a kind of a non-fragmented platform. So try to in a way drive very much more in a way stability in the software platform, and that's where you see basically a distinction between the feature phones and smartphones. Where smartphone you have to kind of as a software developer provide basically a consistent software platform across many devices, whereas in feature phone we see it's focused propositions, particularly for market. So basically increasing you will see that smartphones live with basically a software platform logic, and feature phone continues to go after basic specific pockets either of input mechanism or displays. So there you can see basically from technology point of view the difference becomes in a way from developer point of view bigger in the wheel. You have the smartphone logic and the traditional feature phone logic.
Okay, so you are trying to position Asha as a smartphone, and some big analyst houses also agree with you, but a lot of people in the industry do not actually agree and say no, it's really not smartphones. And the main gripe they have, the problem they have, is that Ashas do not let's say support native third-party app development. So there are, but you do have native apps on Asha phones, like for example EA games that you bundle with Ashas as a promotion.
I think
so there should be some kind of software development kit to develop these applications. So why not open it to everyone and actually make for the developer community to be able to do native apps for Asha phones? Then it's actually truly becomes a true smartphone platform.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, this debate, basically what's a smartphone definition, and obviously we have also basically traditional engineering companies who can have an engineering debate, but in a way what we have been looking at is very much the feedback we get from the market. So you get in a way the consumer feedback that in a way when you have very good browser and apps, then basically the consumer paradigm start to be smartphone behavior, and you see that basically in the data traffic and application traffic, and also from developers you see actually that the number of downloads is spiking when you kind of introduced the touch displays and colors, and also basically the SDK. So I think you have a point in a way that the more you go into smartphones, the more the importance of having the good APIs and the third-party application system, and we obviously are putting a lot of extra effort there. So if you look at mobile phones strategy, now I compare a few years back, we spent a lot of time in a way ensuring that we get kind of the developer platform and the developer SDKs and the tool chains, and also the monetization when it comes to the store environment to kind of ensure that our developers have the basically ability to make very good apps and also make money on top of it. So in that sense, the development goes in that direction, that you see more and more.
Okay, so let's hope it eventually gets there.
And if you see basically today that you have in a way the Java, and then you have in a way the web apps, you see basically the momentum we are having in the ecosystem. So it's interesting to see, for example, that today we have had close to 3.4 billion cumulative downloads of applications on Series 40. And what is interesting, in half of that, 1.7 billion happened last year. And now we are basically at 9 million apps almost per day in download. So you see basically this explosion of application traffic in this part of the range as well, which in a way says to your point, in a way, this is becoming very much kind of a developer ecosystem. And in many markets, actually, we are the biggest or the second biggest application ecosystem. And obviously, as you alluded to, key competition with us is basically low-end Android space, where we are also seeing in a way that we are cutthroat every day meeting the low-end Android in the retail environment and also for developers. And what I think is very interesting is this fact that in the 25 markets in the same price point, we're actually outselling the low-end Androids in this. And I think this is kind of something that I think is kind of a news for many industry spectators that, okay, a lot of speculation, will the feature phones go away, or what's in a way, is it a smartphone or not? But when you see in the market, it's actually winning and taking share. That I think is kind of the market feedback.
No, that's actually really interesting. So you are doing good right now against Android because, let's say, looking back a couple of years, 2 years in a row actually, Nokia had a great Q4, let's say, and then come Q1 when Android, let's say, Android moved into, let's say, another price category, and where previously cheap Nokia smartphones and then mobile phones ruled. And in Q1 in 2011 and 2012 you had very bad results even in mobile phone business, especially higher end mobile phones. So in 2011 it was, I think the problem was dual SIM. You were late with dual SIM. In 2012 you were we were late with full touch, and then you recovered in Q2, Q3, and that was the problem. So, and now we're again a month away from the dreaded end of Q1. So how do you feel this year against Android?
No,
how are things good?
So I'm not making any kind of forward-looking statements.
No, I don't expect that.
But in a way, I mean, point number one, I think this is a cutthroat competitive industry, right? And you have to earn your, in a way, market position in the consumers every day. So in that sense, there is no basically resting on the laurels for everyone. And you have to continue to drive innovation and do a really good job. But what I think is very interesting is in a way that you see kind of a very positive response from us, particularly in the low-end smartphone space, when we had basically zero market share in the touch space in the summer, and now basically globally we took basically over 10% share, depending on what basically external agency you're looking at, and outside China even bigger. So we became actually the second biggest low-end smartphone shipper after basically the Samsung Android. So we become basically very much a kind of extremely good momentum from us. But I think the key point is that in a way what we get feedback from the user is that you have to drive differentiation and provide value. So we compete very much by user experience. So we ensure that in a way the user experience on the essential features are really, really good. And also, of course, competing on the differentiators as quality. We don't want to compromise the quality, ensuring that designs are beautiful and they really last. The simplicity of the user interface and smarter internet. So providing this in a way at that price point, the cloud optimized browsing, the unique application store access that is really global and not just kind of working in a couple of markets. And I think these are areas that I think are really, really important when you look at it from user point of view, why the basically Asha smartphone lineup is successful, right, in this cutthroat competition. And obviously competition is not standing still, and we are not either, so we have to kind of continue to innovate.
So let's say, as I see in mobile phones, the key strength of Nokia mobile phones is right now their data frugality. So I mean they're using much
data compression, so 90% data compression, for example, on the browsing side,
and great battery lives. But I mean 4 to 6 years ago, the data networks and data frugality was also a key feature, an important feature of any phones. But then in advanced markets, as 3G and HSPA networks were deployed, now people stopped caring about that. And I mean, and as data, and the similar thing happened in China. I mean, and Nokia actually dominated China in the era of 2G networks, and as 3G networks started to be deployed, again Nokia's position suffered, and now as 3G networks are getting deployed more and more widely in emerging markets, which are key markets for mobile phones, do you think you are ready now, and the Ashas are, let's say, when people stop caring about how much data your phone uses, are you ready for that? Are Asha for mobile phones ready for that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We are actually in part one also in a way driving the data for the next billion. So in a way, what you see, for example, in lineup, in many phones we have also in a way Wi-Fi as basically a secondary connection. Obviously 3G is also important on our agenda. So obviously it's about kind of continue to providing innovation that is kind of relevant and use that data to provide basically compression, for example, is to provide also speed of the user experience, and also ensure that the quality of the user experience is really, really good. So I see a great kind of venue to continue innovating and also give users actually more, both when it comes to the browsing user experience and also what we discussed, the application user experience, and actually innovate in that field. Because I think that many of the vendors, they are basically looking at kind of a high-end experience, they are shrinking down, so making compromises, where we look the other way around. How can we purpose build something that really unique, that fits basically particularly the high growth market, and increasingly also getting traction in Europe, and build from ground up. And I think that's kind of where we see the Asha smartphone lineup is kind of best positioned actually to win in that space. And one, I think it's interesting to your comment that we are seeing also increased traction also in the Western markets for the Asha lineup. You have many kind of operators kind of considering now ranging Asha as kind of in their smartphone segment, and you see also in markets where we are the number one seller, many of them are actually in Europe. So I think that's also very interesting to see that something that kind of looked maybe a few years that okay, maybe this is more about emerging market play, actually have good traction in the Western markets as well.
So do you plan to expand the Asha line to advanced markets too?
Yes, so we see basically
right now it's launching first, and also launching first in places like India, and then later you get to Europe. And do you plan to start also prioritizing Europe for Asha?
Yes. So basically we see increased traction, and there are a couple of things happening, right? So obviously some users are drawn to basically the simplicity and essential of the experience, that we have fine-tuned the kind of most relevant experience, and also I mean the design and size of these were also very convenient. But then also what happens is that increasing the trend is that people are looking for multi-device use cases. So they want to have a companion, for example, to their tablet, right? That you might want to have a kind of a stylish phone that does voice call really well, and then you have your tablet in the basically backpack, and they are basically synchronized. And you see this type of behavior that also creates basically increased demand, and obviously in many markets there is big room for, in a way, stylish traditional keypads and 3G. So we feel particularly now when we have in this one, for example, when we have a classic modern design, we have basically the kind of innovative smart imaging features and the 3G with HSPA basically, and the browsing. That's kind of, I'm sure this will be very excited also in outside basically the emerging markets, very much in the Western markets.
So what do you think about Firefox OS? Because price wise they are aiming directly at these same users as Asha does, and also let's say they seem to have a pretty strong operator support.
No, obviously, I mean, it's very interesting times I think we are living, right, with a lot of new approaches coming to the market. So I will be looking forward to try it out myself here over the phone. So I mean, this is kind of what is interesting is that this low-end smartphone space is one of the most rapidly growing segments actually of the industry. So I think it's very natural that attracts all type of competition approaching, and for the consumer I think that's good, right? It drives innovation. So obviously it will be interesting to see, and I'm sure that will not be the last of any announcements here as well.
And I think we have time for one quick question.
Okay, so let's say Nokia still has, let's say, a very good economies of scale in mobile phone business, components, etc., but not as good right now in smartphones. And Steven Ilop yesterday mentioned that there are some synergies, let's say, and that Nokia can use some let's say, economies of scale in the mobile phone division by to let's say lower to increase the price competitiveness of smartphones. So how does that work? How does it work? Do you have the same component sourcing made in same factories, etc.?
Yeah, I mean you're right. There are many levels of synergies if you look at kind of the value chain, right? So I mean just to name a couple. So obviously, for example, in R&D side, there is kind of big synergies. For example, if you look at imaging innovation as an example, obviously it's very exciting across the range. So what we develop in the high end and so forth that you see here, if we can look at what are the areas we can in a way basically optimize cost value and drive the different price points, and there are many examples like that, right? Also, I mean, if you look at, for example, maps, another area where in a way once you create kind of a high quality map, we can leverage it basically across the range, and the same thing you see basically increasingly with design and material choices. So there's a lot of in a way R&D side synergies, and then obviously on the sales and channel side as well, right? So we have in the stores and so forth. So it is definitely an important driver for profitability in this industry scale, and particularly from mobile phones. We have been actually increasing our market share. If you look at, for example, strategy analytics, last year we gained 2% market share, and that scale you can see in the profitability as well, right? So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you.